the Culture Blender. We talk to guests in this podcast about the worlds they have visited. So join us as we explore the beautiful blend of traditions, languages, and lifestyles that make our world so wonderfully unique and nice. In each episode, we bring you stories, experiences, and insights from people who have lived, worked, or studied out of their homeland. I'm going to talk to Srushti from Goa. Hi, Srushti.
Hello,
Welcome to the show.
thank you so much.
Srushti, I would like to start by asking you, where are you from basically, and what do you do?
So I'm from Goa. I was actually born in Dubai, UAE. But when I was just
Okay.
before I turned two, actually, my parents came back to Goa, and I've been here ever since. So I've recently started teaching at a higher secondary school. I teach the Portuguese language, and I'm also
Oh,
working at a language institute. It's called Instituto Camões. They
I
have
see.
the the Portuguese exams across different
Hmm.
countries in the world, and I work at the one here in Goa.
That's nice. So, where did you go for your
I did
studies?
all of my schooling here in Goa, and then during
Hmm.
the second year of my bachelor's, I had the opportunity to go to Portugal for an entire year, my second year there. And I did my
Nice.
bachelor's in English literature and Portuguese language. So I continued the course
Hmm.
there at the University of Porto.
Okay.
After that, I did my master's here, University of Goa, and
Hmm.
again I got the chance to go to Portugal, but this time for 9 months. So I went back to the same city, to Porto, and I studied there.
Great. So, when you went there, what was your initial impression of that place?
Um, I think in like today, it's not very different from what we see on the TV and in on the internet. I mean, there isn't much of a difference. So there wasn't as much of a culture shock as I would have expected. But of course,
Hmm.
there were like a lot of new things to learn about culture, about different people. I think when you go abroad as
Hmm.
a student, you don't just meet people of that nationality or of that country rather. You meet people of
Hmm.
coming from different countries, right? Students coming in
Hmm.
from different countries. So you learn a lot about other countries and their cultures as well. So that is very nice.
That's nice. Did your experience of living abroad shape your understanding of your own culture? Did it happen to you?
Yeah, for sure. I think when you live in a country for a very long time, you tend to overlook certain things or the reason behind why certain things are done a certain way and why certain traditions are followed or the importance of certain things. And then when you go
Hmm.
abroad, I think, or that was in my case at least, when I went to Portugal, both the time, did a lot of reflection on certain cultural aspects of our country. And yeah, I think
Hmm.
in that sense, I learned a lot, not just about their culture, but also about my own. Yeah.
Okay, that is so interesting that we learn about both the countries simultaneously.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When you were staying there, did you adapt to any customs or small things around you, you know?
Yeah, I think one of the major things that I learned there was it probably has to do with the fact that Portugal is like nowhere close to how populated India is. Even though Goa is not as densely populated as the big cities in India,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
even then, the the population that we have here is a lot denser than what you would have in Porto, for example, that I lived in.
Right.
So people tend to automatically give you a lot of physical space. So when you're walking, like you
Hmm.
tend to not walk close to other people. But here we don't have that option, right? Because of the number of people everywhere, we tend to walk very close to each other. Or simple things like when you're
Right.
waiting in queue, people keep a lot
Hmm.
of distance, even when you're
Hmm.
waiting for like withdrawing cash. Like there, the ATMs are
Hmm.
always outside. You don't have like very rarely you will go to an ATM that's inside a bank or inside an enclosed
Hmm.
space. Generally, there are ATMs on the road, just like that. So you just go withdraw cash. But even
Okay.
then, when people stand in queue, there's a lot of distance, and it's like understood. Okay,
Hmm.
this is the person who's going to go before me. This is the person who's going to go after. But here in India, we don't have that, right? We stand very close to each other in queues. I think that was the first thing that I yeah I thought was very different and I think I also learned to keep physical space and got used to that physical space actually. So when I came back, it was a bit annoying even to have people very close to me physically. But yeah, I mean, you get used to it. Once you're back and you're here for good, then you get used to this again. So it's all right.
That's so true. Srushti, you were studying there, so I'm sure there must be a lot of things you must be doing and you must be handling. So, did you face any challenges while doing that?
The first time I went, I was only 19 years old, and it was also my first experience abroad. I hadn't traveled abroad with my family, like let alone traveling by myself. So I had a colleague with me, and both of us, like although we had been learning the language, our fluency was nowhere close to the native speakers, right? So there were
Hmm.
a lot of things that we struggled with initially when it came to conversation. And also, what you learn academically is not what you speak. There's a lot of
Correct.
slang, and it takes time to get used to that. Also, old people have a different way of speaking. The same way in our country, if you speak to the older generation, their way of talking is different because we've been living here. We're used to that. But when you go abroad, you realize that, oh, the youngsters speak one language, and then the older people speak a different language almost in that way. But yeah, and also because I live in Goa, Goa is like pretty small, and we don't have our own metro system. And I mean, although I traveled quite often to cities in India, I there was a lot of stuff that I needed to learn when I got there, like the way you need to like how to take a metro and getting the card done, and everything had to be done in Portuguese, right? It's not like I could use English. So since everything required some level of fluency in Portuguese. I struggled a bit there, and also bank work and all of those things, like things that you learn when you're in your teenage, but also learning it in a foreign language is a bit more challenging. So,
You've learned Portuguese in India and then you went to Porto. So, how did it help
so
you?
the thing is, in Goa, we have this option instead of learn
Mhm.
till the seventh standard Konkani, which is the state language, is compulsory. After that, you can opt for a foreign language instead of Konkani. So that's what I did. In the eighth
Okay.
standard, I decided to take Portuguese.
Mhm.
And then I learned it from 8th to 12th. I studied Portuguese
Mhm.
in school. After which I took
Mhm.
it up in my bachelor's and then also in my master's. Uh,
Mhm.
and like I said earlier, the first time I went to Portugal, it was a part of my bachelor's program. So I
Mhm.
continued to learn more about the language while also learning English literature. So yeah, that was how
Mhm.
it was.
Okay, yeah.
So the thing is, uh, I made a few friends who are Portuguese by
Mhm.
nationality, and they told me a lot of these very interesting things. For example, according to this one friend of mine, the old people in Portugal are quite they have this very sarcastic way of talking at times, which if you're not a native
Mhm.
speaker, you won't understand because you'll take it at face value. Like for example,
Correct.
if you're and I mean they don't do it to foreigners, of course, because they realize that you won't get
Mhm.
what they're trying to say. But they do it to
Mhm.
their own grandkids and things like that. So apparently, if you have coins in your pocket and you try to reach for
Yeah.
something and the coins fall
Mhm.
out by mistake, they fall onto the ground, they'll ask you something like, oh, are you trying to grow money, something like that. So that is the
Oh,
kind of
okay.
but they're also
Uh-huh.
very kind. There was this old lady that I used to meet quite often. I didn't know her personally. She used to wait at the same bus
Mhm.
stop as I did, and uh she never asked me my name, and I never asked for hers. But every time I saw her, she would
Mhm.
have something to say, like tell me that I need to dress warmer, because she probably realized I was a foreigner.
Mhm.
I might not
Mhm.
know that I need to dress warmly for certain weather and things like that. And yeah, they're very kind in that way. They try to take care of you, and they're always giving you advice and stuff like that. Younger generations, I think, exposure to English movies and in general, like American culture and stuff like that, has a lot of influence on their language as well. So
I see.
sometimes certain phrases that are used in English,
Mhm.
they tend to adopt certain English words and fit it into the
Mhm.
Portuguese language. That's also, I mean, it's
Okay.
very cute. I like how it sounds. It's not something we get exposed to here in Goa because here we learn academic Portuguese, right? So
Correct.
yeah, that's
Yes.
something you realize
That's
only when you go there. Yeah.
right. So you must be learning the standard language here according to some format. and in
Yeah,
Porto
I
it
mean,
must
we
be
learn what
different.
is used. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
Correct.
what you would use at work. We use what you would use at work, you know, formally. Like if you were in a
Mm,
university in Portugal or you were working,
mm,
then the language that you would
mm.
use, that is what we study. But of course, when it's
Correct.
informal, it's very different, right? Similar to how we study languages. In school, we study Hindi a certain way. When we talk to our friends, we don't
Mm.
really speak that way. So, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's interesting. So, what is the most surprising thing over there that you came across?
Rather than surprising, the most interesting thing that I came across was that at the end of the
Mhm.
day, no matter which country a person comes from or like a group of people come from, you always have like similar people everywhere, you know, like um certain mindsets are the same sometimes. Of course,
Mhm.
social changes and certain political atmospheres, they do tend to influence people and the way they think and the way they feel about certain things, but you'll always find people like you or people. So in India, if you hang out with a certain type of people, you'll always find that type of people wherever you go. It's not that you won't. That's what I realized. I
Mm.
mean, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, what is the most beautiful thing about where you lived?
So the city of Porto is actually protected by UNESCO. uh,
Mhm.
um, it's like the architecture is very unique because it was built during a certain period of time, and I mean during a time when Portugal was very rich basically, and the king was able to put in a lot of money into the architecture, you know, in general the planning of the city. So that's why it is like a one of a kind city. Also because it's very strategically located. Port. So Porto is a port, and but at the same time it's got its own charm, not like your average, like it's in India we have coastal regions. So in
Mhm.
Porto it's very different in that sense, also because of the temperature and because it's at a different because it's not in the tropical region of the planet.
Right.
But even then it's very charming. The city is very charming. Yeah, I think
Mm.
that's what most people would have to say. Most tourists and most students who go there to study find it very charming.
I when we visit another country, I mean, we are out of our homeland, we tend to miss specific customs or rituals. So, did you miss any?
Yeah, I definitely did. So
Mhm.
I think what happens when you go abroad is even if you find people, like if I were to find Indians, if I had Indians with me, and I could still celebrate festivals, right? Like Diwali or Ganesh Chaturthi, whatever. But what you tend to miss is certain events that take place, like marriages or when a child is born in the
Mhm.
family or a family friend gets engaged, you know, things like that. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, those are the kind of things that I think I missed.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Oh,
I mean it happens to everyone, I'm sure.
yeah, that's right. Which cuisines did you try there?
uh I had the I mean, fortunately I lived with people who came from different places. I had people from African countries, people from Eastern European countries, Central European countries, um, Western European countries. So, because when you live together, everyone cooks, and then you get the chance to taste different cuisines. So in that sense,
Mhm. Right.
yeah, I got the opportunity to taste a lot of different types of food. But of course, since I was in
Mhm.
Portugal, there was no way I was missing out on that cuisine. So I also, I mean, they invited me to their homes, and then you know their
Mhm.
families cooked for me, and I also tried food outside in restaurants, and yeah, it's very nice. Portuguese cuisine is very good. Mm. I would say the Portuguese cuisine is not very different from Goan cuisine in the sense the basic ingredients is like they eat a lot of fish in Goa. Also, we eat a lot of fish because we're a coastal region. They eat rice regularly. We also eat rice.
Mhm.
They what was interesting for me was that they eat a lot of green leafy vegetables. They have a lot of those,
I
the
see.
spinach and kale and things like that. Very
Mhm.
common. Then you have the potatoes, onions. They have potato-based soups and yeah, a lot of warm food in
Okay.
general. It's a very windy
Oh.
place. Porto is very windy,
Oh.
so
Mhm.
even though the temperature doesn't appear to be very
Mm-hmm.
cold, you feel the chill to your bones, because of the wind. So most of their food is very homely and very warm, and yeah, it's very good. And but of course, what is different is the spices. Like they don't use nearly as many spices as we do here. They use pepper,
Oh,
salt, garlic. Garlic is very important. Olive oil as well. Wine,
I see.
cheese, yeah, bread. Yeah, that's always found in a Portuguese kitchen. So
I
yeah.
see. Okay. While studying there, did you get any time to visit any places?
Yeah, I was very lucky that way. I visited quite a few places, mostly in the north, because Porto is situated in the north. So for me, it was very easy to go to the different regions. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I went to Braga, Guimarães,
Mm-hmm.
Aveiro, Viseu. And in
Mm-hmm.
the south, of course, I had to pay a visit to Lisbon. Actually, I went there a couple of times. So Lisbon, because the
Oh.
city, I would say you must go there. And then there are a few places close to Lisbon. There's called Sintra, which is very beautiful. Then there's Cascais. And then during
Mm.
the summer break, I also went to the beaches in Algarve. That was also very beautiful. So
Srushti, you are a dance and music enthusiast. So, did you explore it there too?
Um, actually, this time when I went, the second time I went to Portugal, there was a Fado festival happening in Lisbon. So I
Hmm.
attended that festival, and yeah, I mean, it was amazing because certain people who I had been listening to, like on recorded music, I had the opportunity to watch live, and there's nothing as
Oh,
amazing as a live performance. So that was
right.
really, really nice. I'm so glad I got the opportunity to watch that. Um, and in Porto, actually, there are a lot of student associations that have these small performances of traditional Portuguese dances, folk dances, and folk music and things like that. So whenever I had the opportunity to go, like my friends would invite me, and then I would, yeah, make it a point to go. And
Mhm.
during Christmas and Easter, and during the basically the festive season, they have a lot of Western classical music performances in churches, which most of the time are free
Oh,
and
okay.
they're beautiful. I mean, you have like the entire orchestra and you have the entire
Hmm.
choir, and it's amazing. So yeah.
Great. It was a lovely discussion, and we got to know Porto or Portugal through your eyes. Thank you so much.
No problem. Mm.
So, which country do you plan to visit next?
Um, that's a very good question. I think I'd like to visit a country in Asia this time
Oh,
because
I
I'm
see.
intrigued by their culture and something different. Because when I was in Portugal, I also visited Italy. And of course, I'd love
Mhm.
to go back to Europe whenever possible. But I also really want to go to, like, I want to travel through Asia. So, Asian country, most
Great.
probably.
Yes, that's great. So, I wish you all the best for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And maybe we will have you on our show again to talk about the Asian countries that you visited.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Srushti, so much. Bye bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed learning about this part of the world from Srushti's perspective. Stay tuned for more episodes from The Culture Blender. Share the podcast with your family and friends and connect with me if you wish to be on this show. Bye bye. Have a nice day.